Hey, good evening, guys. So the topic is fears. Fear. I was talking to someone, I was having a phone call, and she told me two stories. So one story is about her cousin. Uh, he was dating, he met a woman on a dating website, right? And they started talking. It was about maybe 10, 15 years ago, something like that. So they started talking and they liked each other and they checked out, values and things like that. And it was a go. And within 2 weeks, he just picked up his life and he moved across the country to be with her. And they moved in together. And I guess they figured out, it was one of the things they figured out that they will never know each other until they fully commit. Because if they're halfway in, just 1 foot in, 1 foot out, they'll still kind of pretend, they'll still trying to make it work. And they will never know how kind of the hidden recesses of themselves, the hidden quirks of personalities, until they fully commit and fully move in. Because even if they live in together as boyfriend and girlfriend, it won't be the same. So since the main things kind of worked out, we just bit the bullet and they moved in together. And they've been married for the past 10, 15 years, however long it was, and they have kids and everything. And then the other story she told me was about herself dating, I think it's a second marriage for her. Well, she's been married before, so she's been dating this man also across the country, and they had this, I guess, pen pal telephone call relationship for 5 years or so. They went a few times to see each other, and they're still sort of dating and still not committing. And maybe he's afraid to commit, maybe she's afraid to commit, maybe they're thinking about what can go wrong. So they haven't been together, they're still not together, they're still kind of checking out other opportunities. So again, the theme that I saw in our conversation, and she voiced it as well. She said, they're afraid to make the move, unlike the first cousins, right? Is fear. And he kind of spoke to me because I'm also dealing with that. Hey, it's my show, get out. So there are many ways to overcome fear, but I want to talk about two of them. So one of them is to face them, to face the fears. And I'm not talking about, let's just go there. So one of them is to face the fears. What means to face the fear? Fear is usually, well, obviously if someone is running after you with a knife and you're afraid, well, you have a threat right here. So it's not even fear, there's a threat, We're talking about fears that are not real. We have an opportunity, we want to do something, we want to start something new, and we're afraid that we might fail. We're afraid about how people will react to us, but it's not happening. It didn't happen yet. It may never happen. Why are we afraid? So imagine, I'll give a metaphor, right? Imagine you go to a movie theater, or you watching a thriller or horror movie with your friends, and it's really scary, and someone, Freddy Krueger, is running after someone with a knife and stabs them, and you're nervous, you cry, and you laugh, and finally you go home and you're sitting and you hear a door creak behind you. You're afraid because who knows? Your mind basically replays your experience that you had in that movie theater, and you imagine that same pattern is replaying over here. So basically we're afraid of being hurt. We're afraid of the pain. We're afraid of the discomfort. And our mind is good at replaying situations that occurred at some point, like that experience we had, with our experience or someone else's that we witnessed, and he puts us into those same shoes. But if you're sitting at home and your door creaks, you know it's not Freddy Krueger behind it because you're at home and Freddy Krueger is back at the movie theater, you know, on the tape. All you have to do is basically get up and check behind the door, but something in us kind of keeps us in. So facing the fears is, as long as we're worried and we're afraid to get up and check what's behind the door, that fear is very real, because it's like the Schrodinger's cat, right? So whichever one, I forgot what that concept is called, but he may be there, he may not be there. So unless we check, we won't know. So by facing the fears, basically, you need to stop and think, okay, what am I afraid of? What's going on? And when you walk down that path of your emotions and you connect to the fear, to the original fear that prompted those intense emotions and the apprehension. For example, you're gonna go dance in front of everyone and you're afraid that people will laugh at you. How do you know? Maybe they'll love it. Maybe even the faux pas, you know, like the weird twitches you'll do, they'll actually appreciate it and they'll laugh, but it'll be a light-hearted laugh and they'll be like cheering up for you. How do you know? The fear we have is the fear that we experienced or we saw someone else experiencing before and people really laughed at them. But if you zero on that original apprehension, you will realize that perhaps it won't happen. So facing the fears. And very often fears, it's really a flag. It's a flag waiting behind our mind. It's a flag waving at us to remind us that this is something we need to pay attention to. This is something we need to walk down that path to disconnect that connection, because it doesn't serve us. It's a weight we've been carrying with us. It's an emotional weight we've been carrying with us that's been slowing us down. The fears are basically, hey, here I am. Like, you don't need me in my life. Come and disconnect me. Face me. I call them servant fears. Whenever I remember, because I don't always remember. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, there's someone behind the door, and I don't remember. But when I do remember, I call them my servant fears. The other type of fear, the other type of way to deal with fears is to realize that so here's the concept. When things are going good in our lives, we don't watch our actions and we don't watch things that we're used to, how we're used to act, and you know, our patterns. We don't watch them, we don't analyze them, because everything is working. Why should I change anything? And it's only when things are not working, when we hit the bottom, we're faced with the wall, you know, we're faced with a dead end. That's when we start analyzing our life and thinking, okay, what can I change? What new thing can I try? So same thing with the fears. Sometimes we face the fears. It's a similar concept, but instead of walking down the path and analyzing and looking what's behind the door, we actually stare the fear in the face and we say, get out of here. But it happens only when we put in a situation where we have to face the fear no matter what, because we're stuck. And once we breach that fear, it's destroyed. It flies away in sparkles. But it's a painful way to deal with it, because it means that we're under an immense stress. It means that we are put up against the wall. It takes a lot of energy to do it. Why suddenly the topic of fears came up? I was just dealing with a situation where I really needed help. And I had someone who was willing to help me with the thing I needed. And I was afraid to ask them. I was trying to imagine, okay, let me go and do this. Let me try this enterprise. Let me talk to this person. Maybe I'll research something on the internet. I even asked AI. And all I had to do was just to talk to this person who's already willing, who already suggested several times that they're willing to help me. And then at some point I was thinking, wait, why I have this person like literally like throwing himself at me to help me. Why am I refusing that? And I wasn't quite stuck. I wasn't quite put against the wall. I was quite at the dead end, at a dead end. But it was looming. I could see it, a few miles ahead of me. But I didn't want to get to that place because I would be experiencing many failures in many different departments. So I followed that fear, and I was like, let me see what's going on. And I followed the fear, and I analyzed, and I saw where the fear is coming from. Well, it's basically being vulnerable. In that case, for me, it was being vulnerable. I didn't want to be vulnerable to this person because their esteem of me was high in my regard. I cared about what they thought about me, and I didn't want to, even though they're proposing, they're really, and when I actually went and we spoke, the interaction was really genuine. But yeah, so, and when we face the fears, they usually like 90% of the times, it's just a mirage in our head. Because the real fear was something else that happened, and it's not applicable in the situation. So this couple, the first story with the cousin who moved across the country, they just bit the bullet and they tried it out. Doesn't serve to date forever, doesn't serve to try to think about what could be, what could go wrong. They just decided to try it out, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, they'll get a new experience. And my other friend, who was somehow regretfully telling me about her life, they're still dating. So let's not wait till we get to a dead end, right? Servant fears, my friends.